Griffin Rozell, which is spokesperson and press attaché at the US Embassy in Slovakia, who's an expert in Slovak disinformation scene. So let's see. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
This is kind of a new format for me. I'll do my best. First of all, I want to thank everybody at World Learning for putting this on, Vlad Spencer, and we are delighted to have all of you who traveled from elsewhere here in Slovakia. It's very important that we're doing this here in Slovakia, and in a little bit I'll kind of tell you why. I promise not to talk too long because I know you didn't come here to listen to government spokespeople rattle on. But I'll start my sort of anecdote with all my stories begin in Texas, because I'm from Texas, and Texans love Texas. So when I was growing up in Harlingen, Texas, which is a tiny, tiny town down on the border about 30 years ago, maybe a little bit more, we had a very different information environment than we had now. Okay, we had 3 TV channels in my house. And they all kind of showed, they had different entertainment programs, but they all showed the news at 6 and at 10 p.m. I chose which news I wanted to watch based on which channel was kindest to the Harlingen Cardinal football team. And they all kind of showed the same news. We had one newspaper. It was called the Valley Morning Star. And if you were really fancy, you might subscribe to the Dallas Morning News or the New York Times, and you get your news 3 days late, but you were fancy, so you were happy that you had that important newspaper. And, you know, on the TV, if the president came on TV or if there was a national event of importance, it was on every channel. You know, no cartoons, no football games, president's on every channel. Just go outside and find something else to do. So this was not an ideal information environment, and I do not want to romanticize the past, but it did provide some things, which was, first of all, when you read the news, you could be reasonably sure that the people who put it together were professionals, that they were trying to do their job, that they were trying to communicate facts to you, and it created a narrative that most people shared. You know, with your local news, most people in Harlingen and the Rio Grande Valley had the same idea of the facts, and nationally there was sort of a national narrative, and it set some parameters, and it did a fairly good job at excluding perhaps some some irresponsible voices, and definitely excluding just totally fake news or lies or crazy conspiracy theories. And so why am I saying that? Well, media literacy is something kind of new, because if you had asked me in high school in Harlingen, Texas, you know, you need to learn how to read the news and tell fake news from not fake news. That doesn't make any sense. There's just the news. But now we're in a totally different environment. You know, try to explain to somebody growing up in Harlingen, Texas, that there would be government-run television stations from authoritarian regimes that have a very different view of the world and very different facts that they have created would be beamed right into tens of millions of American homes, homes in Europe as well. Or that there would be this proliferation of websites where you could read any news you wanted, many of them pretty good, but some of them extremely, extremely professionally done and full of lies and conspiracy theories. That would be hard to believe, but it is the situation we find ourselves in, and I want to emphasize it here in Slovakia. It is a particular problem. We have some guests from GlobeSec here, and they have done some polling to show that about 50% of Slovaks believe in conspiracy theories. And, you know, I spend a lot of time, maybe too much time, dwelling in the Slovak disinformation space, and I see these damaging narratives. Narratives like one that came up recently was in Belgium, there was a fair, and at this fair, some people set up a booth where they were selling children with price tags and everything to gay couples, right? Another one that I've seen is, of course, that the Ukrainians shot down flight MH17, and the Russians had nothing to do with it. And I've seen probably about 4 or 5 versions of how that happened. And then this summer, we went on a road trip throughout Slovakia, and I heard these conspiracy theories in person. People would come to visit us, and they would talk about the things they believed, and old favorites like the United States blew up the Twin Towers on 9/11 ourselves, and of course, nobody landed on the moon. That was all done in a Hollywood studio. So that's the environment we're operating in, and I want to leave no doubt that this is not benign. It is not something that is happening completely naturally, although some of it is actual natural organic disinformation. This is being done by powers that are hostile to democracy, hostile to the idea of the free and open exchange of ideas, and their purpose, to the extent that there is a purpose, is simply to destroy faith in Western institutions, in democracy, and in the ability to have a civil, rational, open, and free exchange of ideas based on facts. They simply want that to go away and create confusion and make it to where nobody knows what truth is. And to make it even worse, using social media today, we're kind of back the way we were centuries ago when news was just passed on from person to person, and our brains are still kind of wired, right? Like, I'm more likely to believe something if a friend tells it to me than somebody strange. And they are using that trust, that kind of social trust that we have in our friends and acquaintances, they are using that against us. So I hope I've kind of laid out the problems. And so what's the solution? Well, I promise you the U.S. Embassy in Bratislava is not going to have that solution. We are not positioned to come up with that. Who is positioned to come up with solutions are folks in this room right here. Journalists, communicators, folks from the private sector, people who are committed to this open and free exchange of ideas and a civil debate based on facts. And so I am happy that you are all here. I really believe strongly in what can come out of gatherings like this and what has already been accomplished through the network of the digital communicators. I want to welcome everybody else here who may not be an alumni of that program, and just again say thank you so much for joining us. I will be around, and I am excited to see what comes out from your efforts and from the conversations that will take place over the next couple of days. Thank you.